Hey, welcome. It's Sal Buscemi. I want to talk to you today about some of the strategies that we've actually been using here for the past few years, selling off a lot of our properties that we've had, some of them that we're portfolioing, and I'm showing you how we're doing this using terms, meaning seller finance, from the sellers who are selling their properties, but they're sort of caught in a bind because banks aren't lending anymore, and so you have to get creative. So everything that you've heard about creative real estate is true as far as structuring these deals, and I'm going to walk you through a case study, and I'm also going to walk you through an actual deal that we're looking at right now on the internet. So stay tuned, you're going to enjoy this. Make sure you take a lot of notes here because it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's definitely going to be an educational process that's going to be able to help you build your portfolio aggressively in these uncertain, crazy times. All right, so there's plenty of deals right now. There's plenty of motivated sellers out there, and the reason why there's so many motivated sellers today is because banks simply aren't lending. So that means for you deal junkies out there, you can find a lot of great opportunities, but you have to make sure that you structure them correctly. So I went online and I was able to identify a few assets that look interesting to us. And you have to be careful because you have to know exactly what you were looking for and what you're actually driving towards in order to find the diamonds in the rough. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at certain asset types, and then we're going to use certain keywords here. Now, when we're looking at these deals, when we go to LoopNet, for example, that's a free website. You can go to it as a database of a lot of properties. I don't want you to worry about having to pay for a premium service because, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure what the differences are between the premium and the non-premium, so I'm just using the regular site here. But you'll see as I'm walking you through here, I'm putting in certain keywords that I want you to focus on, and that's going to really drive down exactly where we want you to be as far as finding these properties. Now, I printed out one that I have right here, and it seems to be a real interesting deal. So what I was able to do was I put in the search parameters, and I made them very wide. I didn't put in anywhere in the country. I just said leave it open everywhere. But I was very certain because one of the things that I was looking for were certain property types. The property types I was actually looking for were multifamily and mobile home parks. Mobile home parks are notorious cash cows if they're managed correctly. A lot of mobile home park owners don't know how to market to find tenants or buyers or tenants for their pads in their mobile home parks, and a lot of multifamily residential owners, especially your B and C class properties, don't really know how to manage their properties either. Actually, a lot of them happen to be out of state. So we're going to look at those as the most likely opportunities to be able to get stuff on terms. And sure enough, when you do this, when you do the search, you're going to find that a lot of what I'm telling you is going to show up. You're going to have a lot of multifamily in very interesting parts of the country, as well as mobile home parks. Mobile home parks by themselves, even in good markets, are very difficult to get financing for, and the reason for that is because banks just don't like to lend on them. And it can be, that's kind of easy to understand. However, in markets like these, they are almost recession-proof because owning a mobile home park or living in a mobile home is typically sometimes the last bastion of being able to have shelter over your head before you're homeless. So a lot of people like to own these. They're recession-proof, and people, once they move in, they don't really move out. So I printed out over here something that you're looking at on the screen, and it is a Cypress Point LLC. And why I like this deal is because the seller is 100% motivated, as stated here. Now, a lot of the times you're going to find that the descriptions here aren't the most grammatically correct, and that's fine. But this is something for us to work with. What I also like about it is that I put into the search queries assumable and also seller finance or owner finance. And I was able to come up with one that has an assumable loan at a 5.34% long-term financing that's already there. It's an assumable loan. And it has it's assumable for the next 12 years. So that's very exciting to me. And what else I like about it is that it has a potential seller second carry back. They'll take back a TD, what means a trust deed. So let's walk through the math on this deal, if you will, and we can talk about this a little bit. One of the things I want to point out here is that it is in Toledo, Ohio, a bread and butter area. That means when you bring people in, they're not going to go anywhere. Most of the people who live here work locally, and they have kids that go to school locally, and it's what we call a bread and butter community. Another thing that I like about this too is that it is, and I'm scrolling down here, it's 60% occupied, which means that, and I remember it also has an out-of-state owner. You have an out-of-state owner, which probably means he's not managing it correctly. He's probably older, so he doesn't want to deal with it anymore. That's why he's 100% motivated. But also on top of that, he probably also hasn't been actively marketing for new prospects, new tenants to move into it. So these types of opportunities are very easy to fix. It just requires a very aggressive, fast and furious marketing campaign. So let's move into some of the numbers here and let's see what we can do with this deal where we can structure it two ways. One on the buy and then one on the sell, selling it off on terms and then pocketing the difference in the form of paper. Okay, so what we're looking at right now is a mobile home park. Now, I've taken the time to actually go through the deal description a little bit. I haven't called the seller, but I know probably how I'm going to structure this deal just based off of some pieces of information that he's given me already. For example, if we are looking at this solicitation on LoopNet, it says here that the seller wants 20% down. Well, every seller wants 20% down. The reason why sellers think that they need 20% down is because that's what they think the banks want in order for them to have a buyer assume the loan rather. So what we're doing here is I'm putting together what we call a diagram that we call a capital stack. It's not anything, it just is forcing you to think, and I'm showing you in a diagram exactly how this deal is going to work. So the first thing we have to do is draw a diagram about how we're going to buy it, and then we have to draw a diagram about how we're going to sell it. And the more we think about this going into it, and of course this is probably going to take, when you're first starting, maybe 10 minutes a deal to do this, but at the very least you're going to be able to see exactly how we are going to structure these deals. So let's move on to the buy. Now remember, I've done a little bit of math ahead of time. I have my notes here already, so I did do a little cheating, but this is just in the effort to save your time. So we're looking at this deal over here. He's asking $2.6 million, $2.6 million. Whether or not that's top of the market or not, I'm not really too certain. I will tell you I would negotiate anything before going into it. But the purpose of this video is explicitly just to teach you the concepts that you can buy property on seller finance and also sell it on seller finance without having to come out of pocket anything. And that's really the whole fundamental principle behind this video here. So let's just assume that we've already done our negotiation. Everything looks great. We've already done our due diligence. And right now we're down to the wire. We're making a bid for a negotiated, what we call a negotiated transaction here. So he's asking $2.6 million. There's a bank loan on it for approximately $1.7 million. Where do I see that? I see that down at the description on the bottom, 1.742. Well, he says approximately, but he goes all the way out to the dollar. So I'm going to approximate here $1.7 million, and that's a first trust deed at 5.38%. Now, for the purposes of simplicity, what I've done is I've actually taken this and used it as simple interest because I don't want to get involved in amortization or anything. This is just to show you the strategy. It's not to show you, the specifics of it. We can amortize stuff later, but this is just to illustrate exactly what we're doing here. So we have a bank loan for $1.7 million. He wants $520,000 in equity. That's what grown-ups in commercial real estate call down payment. So that leaves us with a gap to fill. And that gap that he's looking to fill is going to be taken back in a seller finance second mortgage, which is great because he already said that. And remember, we queried on that because we want to make sure that when we're querying these, we're dealing with properties and owners who are looking to do deals, and this is exactly what we're looking for. I believe in the query that we had before on the internet when we were looking at LoopNet, we came up with 40 properties nationwide like this. Now, if I was to expand the search a little more and look at things and add some other keywords, I'm sure I can come out much further than that, but just for the purposes of this discussion and this illustration, we're keeping it the way it is with the what we have right now with what we got. It was a mobile home park. Mobile home parks, again, are cash cows. They don't like to be financed. Banks don't like financing them, even in good markets. So that's why the mobile home park owners already know they have to wheel and deal in order to get these things sold. So the difference between 2.6 minus $520,000 minus $1.7 million, and I did the math, it comes out to be $900,000. Okay, so that's a second. And that goes to the seller. Seller second, okay? And I'm going to put an arbitrary interest rate on this just for the sake of showing you how it's done. I'm thinking that probably 6.38. How did I get to that? I made it up. I just basically bumped it up a point. Now, is it going to be more than that? Maybe. I don't know. But the point is that I want to show you how this works first before we go into the trenches, because I think that's where a lot of people, when they're negotiating deals, they don't understand first. They have to think about it and structure it before they go out there into battle and start dealing with the gamesmanship and negotiation required to get this property. So I did the math. If we look at this on an interest only, we're looking at a monthly payment of $4,785, okay? Now, whether or not he's going to hold that or request interest payments, you know, we haven't negotiated that. Remember, it's 60% occupied, so that means that there's a lot of upside there, so we don't want to stress the cash flow the way it is right now, knowing it's going to be improved in the future. So this is the way it looks. This is what we look at when we're buying it. This is the capital structure to buy. Let me go over this again. I got to this number over here because there's a bank loan for $1.7 million already on that. That's there. That's assumable. That's great. There's a equity requirement of 20% of the purchase price, which is $2.6 million. The purchase price, the 2.6, if you multiply that by 0.2, you come up with $520,000, and then you just fill in the gap over here just by deductive math, and you come up with $900,000. So now we know what this is going to look like on the buy. Now let's look at it and see what we're going to do on the sell. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to structure the other side of the transaction. We've already structured the buy, and now we're going to structure what we call the sell. How we're going to sell this property. Well, we're going to sell it off on terms, of course. But we have to pay attention to how we're going to do this. Now, you don't have to structure this on every transaction. Remember, it's important only to structure at the buy to make sure when you're going into negotiations that you know how you're going to structure this, to make sure that you know how to fill in the blanks over here. Very simple stuff to do. It's basically just subtraction. So now let's talk about structuring the deal to sell. All right. Now, again, I've done some homework. All right, and I've taken care of everything for you. So people are saying, I'm sure you're sitting at home and saying, well, how do I make money off of this? Do I sell it for 2.6? Well, you know, if it's that good of a deal and it's that compelling of a cap rate, what I'm going to suggest you do is actually you sell it for a little more, and what I would do is I would sell it for $3 million. Okay, and that's going to kill two birds with one stone, and I'll show you what that means. Now, you need 20% down. You should be able to get 20% down. And in doing so, what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to capture enough money at the buy to be able, at the sell in order to cover the buy. Let me say that again. You're going to be able to capture enough money when you sell it so that you don't have to come out of pocket for the buy. So this is how this is going to work. Now remember, red means equity. So over here, let's just say that we're going to draw another box. Okay, a little too far down, but what we're going to do is we're going to go this way. All right, and that's going to be the equity. So $3 million times 20% is $600,000. Okay? That's what you want from your buyer to come to the table with. Equity is the same thing. Remember, equity is a grown-up term for down payment. Okay, so this is your equity. Okay, is that a profit center? Absolutely. We're going to cover the profit centers once we're finished with this. So you have the $600,000 coming in, and the other part of this too that I want to make sure you understand is that there's a gap here. So what are you going to do? You yourself, you're going to have a block in what we call this capital structure. And what you're going to do is you're going to take back some financing yourself. Why not? It's America. It's a great country, and this happens every day. I've actually seen third, fourth mortgages on certain pieces of commercial real estate. And when the banks aren't lending and there's no longer any capital or cash flowing, you have to get creative doing this stuff. So you are going to take back a loan for $400,000. Okay, that's to you. Okay, and now we'll call that a third, but yeah. We'll leave it like that. Now, there's a monthly payment that comes in with that too as well, because he's going to have to pay you too, just like he's going to have to pay the underlying mortgages. Now, the key to this and the strategy is to make sure that the outgo does not exceed the income, and it leaves enough on the table each month for your seller to be actually very compelled to do this deal. We picked this deal for several reasons. Number one, because it had a high cap rate. So it seems as though at the margin that this deal is going to work if we throw on a third mortgage. Most of them will, but remember, the ones that have lower cap rates are going to be very tricky to deal with because there's not going to be a lot of cash flow actually coming out to be able to satisfy second and third mortgages. So that's why we told you to work with things that traditionally trade at high cap rates, such as B and C class apartment buildings and mobile home parks. So we have a $400,000 third here, a monthly payment on this, and again I cheated and I did my math again, and I'm just going to assume that it's at 7%, okay, is the estimated monthly. Okay, that goes to you. That pays for all your bills, that pays for your nice car, your house payment, your second house payment, your kids' college education. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the different profit strategies here. So far we have $60,000 coming in. Now remember, you don't keep all that $600,000. So the first profit center we're going to see, number one, is going to be the equity, or what we call the cash. Okay? So here's how this works. This minus that equals what you get. $600,000 from your buyer minus $520,000 that goes to your seller leaves you a net of $80,000. Not bad for a day's work. Okay? Number two, what is the second income stream that you have coming in? Well, let's say you were structuring this for 2 years. 2 years at $2,333,000 comes out to be about, I'm just going to guesstimate, but probably be somewhere close to, let's just say somewhere around $54,000. Okay? Perfect. And then there's one last chunk of cash that's coming to you. What is that last chunk of cash? Well, in commercial real estate, there's only two ways to get cashed out. Number one, you refinance, or number two, you sell. So let's assume that one of those things happened with this mobile home park. What is going to happen? Well, you have a loan here, $400,000. Now remember, this is an interest rate only loan for 7%. So when that's not going to pay down. That's interest only on that unpaid principal balance, or what we call the UPB. So you also get another profit center, which is the third profit center, for $400,000. Okay? Which gives you an approximate net profit of $535,000 for this deal. And again, I had to do a little math in my head, but still, even if I'm off by $10,000 or $20,000 in my math, it's still a great payday for a piece of real estate that A, you don't own, B, you control, C, you don't have to deal with the tenants and toilets. You're dealing with the benefits of real estate, not the burdens of real estate. So this is the way I want you to do your deals going forward. Okay, so we went over a very simple deal. We told you, just to do a little recap, what kind of assets you want to target. Number two, what kind of terms and keywords you want to query on, where to query them for. We said LoopNet before. And then also how to structure the deal on the buy and on the sell. And all you have to do is do this a handful of times and already you're a pro. It doesn't take any special skills to do this. You don't have to have a 1600 on the SAT or a PhD in mathematics in order to do this type of structuring. But it's the way deals are being done. And today, there's a lot of people who, there's actually a void that needs to be filled with people who understand how to do seller financing. You can make a lot of money doing this. Realtors, for example, do not generally know how to sell deals on seller financing. So if you're interested to learn more about this, I urge you to go to dandrewnoteworthy.com. That's dandrewnoteworthy.com. A friend of mine named Jack Sternberg, who's been putting out the Noteworthy newsletter for about 25 years. He's sort of the elder statesman of the industry, if you will, is actually putting on some special educational training just like this right now. So I encourage you to go to that website and learn a little more. In the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them on the blog. I'll answer them myself, and I appreciate the time that you took to watch this video.